to your seats. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Democrats of Northfield Township's third annual Fall Fundraising Luncheon. I'm your committee person, Tracy Katzmull, and I am thrilled to welcome all 200 plus of you to this afternoon's luncheon. We're here today first to celebrate, and second to get fired up for all the work to come. There is a lot to celebrate from the 2018 election. In Washington, D.C., we took back the House. And there, Congresswoman Schakowsky and Congressman Schneider and their fellow congressional Democrats passed legislation on the most critical issues like health care, civil rights, gun violence prevention, and the environment. We are sending a strong message to voters about the kinds of new laws they can expect when they send our Senator Dick Durbin and the Senate Democrats a majority in the 2020 general election. And in Springfield, we had the most productive legislative session in decades. Governor J.B. Pritzker and our Northfield Township legislators led the way, passing a $15 minimum wage, a balanced budget, the Reproductive Health Act, sports gaming, recreational marijuana, and mission critical, put the fair tax referendum on our ballot. These are major accomplishments that will lead Illinois to a brighter future. Our county and local governments have also dug in, tackling critical issues like healthcare, criminal justice reform, gun safety, the environment, and fair. It is our responsibility here today as Democrats to make sure that that work continues. First and foremost, we need to take back the White House. We need to send our federal and state representatives back to Washington, D.C. and Springfield. And third, and critically, we need to return Democrats to our Cook County offices, critically, including the bench, electing our Democratic judges to the Illinois Supreme Court, the Appellate Court, and the Circuit Court. We need our judges. Your ticket purchases today and donations have made that work possible. Democrats of Northfield Township has a truly amazing team of precinct captains and field workers. They covered 250 plus shifts in the last election. Your contributions pay for the sample ballots that were mailed and hand distributed to literally tens of thousands of Democratic voters here in Northfield Township. In the last cycle, we run every single race up and down the ballot. We had an incredibly high ballot completion rate, 90+% of the voters. We checked that box for the top gubernatorial race, made it all the way down to the bottom, voting for judges, judicial subcircuits, and ballot referendum. We are ready to go again. Will all of the members of our precinct captains team and our field team who worked early voting, election at nursing homes, election day, everybody who's worked this session on petitions, please stand to be recognized as part of our precinct captains team and field team. Of our field team. We have the best field team in suburban Cook County. I also want to take a minute to recognize the event sponsors today whose donations and ticket sales ensure that our full program will be fully funded. Joining me as platinum sponsors are committee person emeritus Mike Kreloff and Nancy Kreloff, John Fallon, Michelle Velucanis, and Mark Tisdall. I also want to thank our gold sponsors today, former State Rep Elaine Neckritz and John Amdor of Neckritz Amdor Consulting, Northbrook School District 27 Board Member and Judicial Alternate Frank Andreu and Lena Andreu, Cook County Public Administrator Louis Apostle and Alexandra Apostle, Cook County Commissioner Scott Britton, Metropolitan Water Reclamation District Commissioner Cam Davis, State Senator Laura Fine and Michael Fine, State Representative Robin Gable, State Representative Jennifer Gong Dershowitz and Mike Dershowitz, State Representative Bob Morgan, Glenview Park District Commissioner Jennifer Roberts, Congressman Brad Schneider, and Metropolitan Water Reclamation District Commissioner Deborah Shore. Thank you, gold sponsors. And finally, I want to thank our silver sponsors today. Cook County Board of Review Commissioner and candidate for Cook County Clerk, Mike Cavanargi. Catherine Caparuso, Sarah Chupak, State Representative Jonathan Carroll and Katrina Carroll, Metropolitan Commissioner Kim Dubuclet, Nolan Susan Elfont, Dr. Betsy Giblin and Orrin Jacobson, Cook County Cook County Assessor, Fritz Kagi, former Northbrook School District 30 Board Member Kate Katz and Abe Katz, Northbrook School District 28 Board Vice President Michelle Kohler and Stephen Kohler, Patty Murphy's Pat and Jeff Pat, State Senator Julie Morrison, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, Northbrook School District 28 Board Member Mara Silvershack and Daniel Shack, Christian Sorensen, and finally Cook County Clerk Karen Yarbrough. In addition to thanking our sponsors, I want to recognize all of the elected officials and candidates who are here with us today. They make big sacrifices to run and to serve, and we thank them for all of their past and present service. In addition to those who have already been recognized as sponsors, I would like to name these candidates and elected officials who are here with us today, starting with our speakers this afternoon, Senator Dick Durbin and Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. Former State Senator Daniel Biss and State Senator Don Harmon. Cook County candidates, Metropolitan Water Reclamation District candidate and Hanover Park Village Clerk, Ada Corral Sepulveda. Candidate for State's Attorney Donna Moore, candidate for Clerk of Court Jacob Meister, and candidate for Board of Review District 1, Maureen Murphy. We have with us today 3 candidates for the Illinois Supreme Court, Justice P. Scott Neville, Appellate Judge Jesse Reyes, and Attorney Clint Grisloff. Appellate Court judges and candidates, Judge John Griffin and Judge Michael Hyman, and our Cook County Court candidates, Laura Ayala Gonzalez, Judge Lynn Weaver Boyle, Araceli De La Cruz, Judge James Derrico, Judge Patricia Fallon, Judge Cherie Henry, Judge Celestia Mays, Judge Teresa Molina, Jill Rose Quinn, Chris Stacy, Deirdre Rauman, and Pam Stardagakis. Judicial alternates Tom Nowinski, Diane Marie Poznowski, and Yolanda Sayer, and 2 sitting Cook County judges not running for re-election, Judge Joel Chupak and Judge Rena Van Tine. I'd also like to recognize our township and municipal officials, former Northbrook School District 28 Board Member Bruce Alborn, Northbrook Trustee Catherine Ciesla, Northbrook Village President Sandy Froome, former Buffalo Grove Mayor Elliot Hartstein, Northbrook Trustee Joanna Ebel, Northbrook Trustee Bob Israel, Glenview Trustee Deborah Carton, former Northfield Township Trustee Karen McCormick, and Northfield Township Trustee Shiva Mosanzada, and finally, 3 political officers in the room, our State Central Committee woman and 10th Dems Chair for the 9th, State Central Committee woman for the 10th and 10th Dems Chair, Lauren Beth Gash, New Trier Township Democrats President Judy Mandel, and last but not least, all the way from Texas, Democrats of Northfield Township past President Dan Freck. Wow, that's gorgeous. Thank you all for being here today. I'm going to take a pause for a minute while you enjoy your salads, and then we'll get on with the program.
So Jan started her career as an activist. She first worked for consumer rights. She was able to work with a group of local women and change the fact that we could now have dates, expiration dates on our consumer products and our food products in our grocery stores. Jan also worked after that, working with a group of seniors, making sure that they were organized and active, and that senior group did an amazing job. Jan was first elected as a state representative to the seat that I now serve in, and from there she moved on to Congress. Jan has always been an advocate for everyday men and women. She is my political godmother, and I know that she has brought many other people with her. Jan knows how to reach up and reach back and bring others with her. We appreciate that so much about her. So please join me with a warm welcome for our compassionate fighter, the Honorable Jan Schakowsky.
Well, thank you so much, Northfield Township Democrats. I'm so happy to see. So this is your moment. This is our moment. And are you ready, Northfield Township Democrats, to change our world? It really needs some changing. And you can do it, and we can do it together. So I am really, Tracy, thank you so much. You're doing a great job in bringing us all together. I'm so happy to be here with my colleagues. It's very awkward for me to go. He's going to be like the keynote. So that's why I am up before him. And of course, he's so much older than, oh no. That's not true either. And with him today is a staffer that he stole from me, Rachel. Great to see you. Thanks. So we have a serious job to do. I am wearing a button today that says Democrat for President. Democrat. Now I know out here that you may have you have different candidates that are your chief supporters, that you are a chief supporter. You know, you're supporting a variety of people, is what I'm trying to say. But when we have a nominee, I want you to raise your right hand. I'm serious. I want to see your right hand. Put your salad fork down. Okay. I want to see your hand. And I want to know if you pledge, when we have a nominee, that you will support wholeheartedly whoever that candidate is. We made that mistake last time, and it's been very costly. There are three things that are most important in an election, and they are turnout, and turnout. Everyone needs to show up. And that is our job, to make sure that we keep the momentum that you see starting, and that we work every day. There has to be something. You may still be passing petition signatures. I love you for that. You know, I don't know about you, Senator, but you know, or you, Congressman Brad Schneider. Sometimes people say, you have to do that every 2 years. I am so fine with that. That is what our democracy is about. And in a way, it is the first test for volunteers, getting people to work, to go out and sign petitions. I have one supporter, 90 years old, who just handed me 1,000 signatures. So if you can do it, you can do it. So here's what I want to say too. The state legislature has proven something very important. That when you have a Democratic leader at the top, our governor, and you have a Democratic House, and you have a Democratic Senate, and change whatever came before you, and you can really make a difference. Because there are people who think it's going to take a long time to undo what Donald Trump has done. And that may be true in one area, unfortunately, in terms of judges. But we have seen, we had 4 years of a governor who did some pretty bad things for Illinois, closing a lot of social service agencies, not having a budget for a couple of years. And now, in less than a year, Let's hear it for the state legislature of the state of Illinois. And we can do that on a national level if we maintain our House majority, if we have the majority, and Dick Durbin just nod. We can do this, right? Yes, he's nodding. We can have a Democratic Senate of the United States, and for sure, we need to have a Democratic president. Now, some of you have heard me say this before, that I believe, I really do, that at the end of the day, Donald Trump will not only be remembered for being the sexist and the racist and the dangerous person that he is and the liar that he is, and you could all go on with many, many things that he is. I believe if we do our job every day, that Donald Trump will be remembered for ushering in the most United States of America in recent history. Are you with me? All right, we can do this. Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody, those of you who don't know me, I'm Cook County Commissioner Scott Britton. Welcome to my hometown, Glenview, and of course, thank you all for getting me this job, which I love so much. And one thing is, as a personal matter, before I introduce who got me this job, my fiancée, Allison, head of the Cook County Democratic Party, Tony Preckwinkle, and our committee woman, Tracy Katz-Muller. Those three, I am forever in your debt. But I get to introduce the next speaker, a woman who has run the Democratic Party for a number of decades, starting with her stint as an alderman of the 4th Ward in the city of Chicago in 1991. And I think back at that time, I was relatively new to Chicago from downstate, and another downstate shout out to my Senator Durbin. We're both downstate boys. So, but the president joined that city council at a time when an independent progressive voice was not necessarily appreciated. And she was a voice that continued to support the important issues of racial and social equity that she has carried forward throughout her tenure. And then in 2010, she became our candidate for Cook County Board President. And I can tell you, during my time as a trustee here in Glenview, I dealt with Cook County government before Tony took over. And it was two words that I would use for what it was, which was unprofessional and dysfunctional. So those things have completely turned around, and not just because of all the work the president has done to reform the aspects of Cook County government that were not working, especially for everyday people in our county. She also was able to establish a group of people that I've now gotten to know over the last year, the people who work in our county, our department heads, and the people in our administration and under the president's office. They're incredibly committed, dedicated, professional, and effective individuals, and I thank the president for bringing those people into our county. When the president took over in 2010, we had a budget deficit in the county of Cook of $487 million. This past week, the president proposed a budget which I support, which will establish no new taxes or fees in the county and a deficit of about $18 million. What a difference 10 years ago. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce the president, and I'll leave you with this last thought. I hear a lot these days about people describing themselves as either a Democratic Socialist Democrat, or a Bernie Democrat, or a Warren Democrat. I think as we know, and as Congresswoman Schakowsky pointed out, at the end of the day, it's that second word that's the most important, that we're all Democrats and we will support our progressive values, particularly as we go into a presidential year. But I can tell you that, at least for me, I consider myself, first and foremost, a Tony Preckwinkle Democrat. And so I wish to introduce our County Board President, Tony Preckwinkle.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very grateful to Commissioner Britton for that the beneficiary of some hard work the last time around. We have 4 Republicans on the Cook County Board of Commissioners, and we decided to mount challenges, strong challenges in 3 of those races, and we won 2 out of 3, one of which was Scott. So that's very good. I am in the unenviable position of following Jan Schakowsky. This is not a position you ever want to be in. Never. You know, we have a number of congressmen who represent all or part of Cook County. And I'm very grateful to them for their support for us in Washington, particularly around health care. And I know the most about Medicaid, Medicare, our health care system is Jan, with all due respect. With all due respect. She's been there longer than you have, right? And we can always count on her staff. We won't be immensely helpful. So I really want to express my appreciation to Jan for all her good work. And of course, we're proud of the fact that Dick Durbin is our senior senator in Illinois, also a strong supporter of our healthcare system and healthcare reform. We're very grateful to him for his good work in that regard. And we're also grateful for his out on the foreign policy issues and the impeachment issues which challenge our country at the moment. So thank you very much, Dick. We appreciate it. I want to talk a little bit about our Cook County ballot. You know, we've been challenged historically as a party to, in our slate of candidates, represent the diversity of our county. And I just want to say, I'm going to talk a little bit about 13 judges that we slated. 13. 3 of them are members of the LGBTQ community. 3 of them are from the Latinx community. 5 are from the African American community out of 13 judges. This is probably the most diverse slate. I'm very proud of the work that the Central Committee did to come up with that slate. And we tried very hard to represent the city and the suburbs, to represent all the tribes in our county, and I think we came up with a really good slate. In a very open process, which I think all who participated can testify. We have, I think, not just in our judicial slate, but from top to bottom, a very diverse slate. And I want to say that the party has not made a commitment to any presidential campaign. We share Congressman Schakowsky's view that we're all going to support the Democratic nominee, whoever that is. And I'm grateful to all of you for the good work that you've done. Mike, I'm grateful to you for the work that you did as my contemporary for many years. And Tracy, of course, I'm grateful to you. You know, we can't have a strong Democratic Party unless people are willing, township by township, ward by ward, to work to support the party and its candidates. And that is often thankless work. I always say being a committeeman is thankless and it costs you money. Nobody in their right mind will want to be a committeeman. But we can't have a strong party unless people are willing to step up and serve the party in the Central Committee, and people are willing, you know, to go door to door, to make phone calls in their own communities, in their own townships and wards. So I just want to thank all of you for being part of this organization and for the support that you've given it over the years. The county relies on the work that you do, and we're very grateful for it. Thanks so much.
Before we move on to the awards portion of the program, I want to add 2 more introductions. Running in the 9th Judicial Sub-Circuit, Julie Amon, and Clerk of Court and also a sitting Metropolitan Water Reclamation District Commissioner, Mariana Sparopoulos. Is there anybody else who slipped in that I missed in the first round of introductions? Oh, I introduced Karen. I introduced her before she got here, but she's here now too. Okay. Terrific. If anybody else does slip in, just tap me on the shoulder.
I'm not running for clerk.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Apologies. Metropolitan Water Relations Commissioner only. All right, terrific. Let's move on to the awards portion of our program. And to kick that off, I'm going to hand it over to State Senator Julie Morrison and Representative Jonathan Farrell.
Thank you. As the Oscars, so I have a co-presenter here, and it's our opportunity to stand up here together work together, but also give out a very important award, the Community Activism Award. Go Green Northbrook is different from other organizations in that it not only promotes its issues and its beliefs, but it demonstrates how we in our own community, in our own homes, can make a difference to the environment in our communities. Go Green Northbrook's mission is to promote environmentally sustainable decisions in our community. It was founded in 2013 by Doug Gerleman. The organization has led efforts to make our community more environmentally friendly with initiatives like the No Idling campaign, Organized Project, and has worked tirelessly to improve biking conditions, natural stormwater absorption, and single-use plastic policies.
Thank you, Senator. I'm State Representative Jonathan Carroll. I'm very honored to present this award as well. I think, as an aside, I think in 20, this is a big issue that we're going to win on is the environment. I think we all have to remind people that the world that we live in needs to be safe. So let's focus on that as well. So I'm very honored to do that. Grow Green Northbrook has led projects like Earth Day for Kids, and they've worked with schools to recycle and provide healthier food. They've established TerraCycling bins around Northbrook and are working to reduce plastic waste in partnerships with restaurants. They've just started to work on a tree planting initiative and a plan to create a new set of standards for development. For all their work in trying to make Northbrook a model for other communities to follow, we're proud to recognize them for this award. Please join me in welcoming Doug Gerleman. Thank you.
Exciting time. The world is changing very fast, and we're learning we are really interdependent. We depend on a healthy environment and each other. We're independent of each other. These things are opening up now. I sent out a couple of brochures I'll just show you. One of them is our tree program, how to maintain, plant different trees, how important it is to plant more trees and list as a highlights of how you really need to maintain them. Absorbs a lot of stormwater and a lot of atmospheric carbon to reduce the impact of greenhouse gases. So that's very important. We also have a whole list here of the different programs that we've undertaken in the last 2 years. It's on your table if you'd like. If you don't get a copy, if you send it to me, send me a request, info or Doug at gogreennorthbrook.org. Like I say, it's an exciting time. We've actually been meeting with our stormwater engineers, and they are very open to the idea of having more water infiltrate into the soils and plants. And so maybe we're trying to get them to use some of the stormwater money to create new alternative landscapes that we're demonstrating. And we're hoping that the village will start doing more demonstrations for us. So that's one thing. The other big important thing, of course, is plastics. We know we have a real issue with plastics. We got rid of the microbeads, with a lot of public rising up and saying, hey, corporations, we don't want this. And they took out those beads that were in all these products. And we can make the manufacturers of all the plastic responsible for the cleanup, just like other corporations. They need to clean up their own waste and don't transfer that responsibility to us, the consumers. But these are massive changes that I think we're getting ready for. So those are the main programs that I'm focused on right now. Look here, if there's anything else, our own energy conservation. We have tried out something called the door-door test. You put a fan in your front door and you push the air out of the house and it creates a vacuum. So you can walk around in all the rooms and find out where the air is leaking. And then you get a phone seal. And it's something that everybody can do, or you can hire a professional kind of person who will do that. Because it's a very significant thing to easy, low cost, do it yourself, and stop all that air leaking out of your house. We've been trying to work with restaurants, see if they can restrict the number of straws they're giving out. We say, hey, just give out straws if person that really wants them and asks for them. Then you can give the patronage straw, but don't just put out plastic for the fun of it, because it's very dangerous. So we're getting into more of those issues. I didn't expect to say anything. This is interesting. Also, a lot of the North Shore communities are now putting together a consortium to purchase lower-cost green energy, solar or wind, and the state is funding some of that program. There's a statewide program that's actually distributing, selecting consortiums that can, work with different Energy Squared. There's a North Shore consortium on energy. So, we need to open our eyes and make links with people that are doing that. The final thing, there's two things I have here. Northbrook actually banned the use of neonicotinoids. So you probably have heard that they're killing a lot of bees and butterflies, and so at least we've taken a step and say, hey, we don't want landscapers to use those kinds of toxic poisons. We need a healthy environment. So that's another big program that Northbrook has started. And the final one that I'll mention is zoning. The zoning codes were created many, many years ago to be sure that the richer homes were not surrounded by homes that were not as wealthy. And so they built the zoning codes. But now we can change the codes to say, hey, the most important thing we need to do is focus on sustainability. And we have to change the way we live and our habits. It's going to be a major shift. But we can start working together, again, the church, and have municipal organizations that, that help each other. It's really neighbor helping neighbor kinds of things. And maybe we'll see how it goes. But anyway, there's some interesting challenges. I don't know if I need to keep Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Doug. Our next award for this afternoon will be presented by State Senator Laura Fine and State Representative and former North Suburban Legal Aid Immigration Project Director, Jennifer Gumgershowitz.
Thank you. Before we start, I just have to say, isn't it great to be a Democrat? Here in Illinois, where we are leading the way. So thank you to Tracy. Just amazing, absolutely amazing. It just makes you excited to just be here. And excited about the next award that we get to present. Founded by Highland Park Mayor Nancy Legal Aid Clinic, opened its doors on May 1st, 2015. Their mission is to provide access to justice to those in need in our community. The clinic helps immigrants stay in the country, helps domestic violence victims escape abusive relationships, and helps tenants stay in their homes and avoid wrongful eviction. In addition, the organization has provided educational programming to clients and the general public.
Thanks, Laura. Good afternoon. So I am now the representative for the 17th District, but 3 years ago, I was the director of the immigration law practice when Trump happened. I know that there's no one in this room that will ever forget where we were or how we felt that night. A fledgling legal aid clinic with a mission to provide equal access to justice to our most vulnerable residents, including immigrants and refugees. To say that Trump has presented new challenges would be an understatement. But the team we're recognizing here today, never flinched. We built the plane while we flew, and over the last 2 years, the clinic has expanded its footprint to ensure that our community is a safer, stronger, and more welcoming place for all. I like to think that success comes to believe that anything is possible. The North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic is the truest example of that I know. For all you do to ensure that equal justice under law continues to mean what it's supposed to mean. I'm proud to recognize the North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic with this award. Please join me in welcoming the Executive Director and my dear friend, Susan Schulman.
you. Oh my goodness. Can I flip to a picture? Trying to be brief. Oh, you're so kind. Thank you so much to the Northfield Township Democrats for this honor and recognition. I just want to give a shout out, first of all, to Jennifer Gong-Gershowitz, such a rock star, and thank you for all of your support, both during when you were with Gailey and I. You were awesome. Thank you so much. Shout out to Mayor Nancy Rodering. This clinic literally would not be here if it was not for her. She is the founder of the clinic. I adore her. I just want to give a shout out to a couple other people who are here today. Jose Rivera, one of my board members, and Jan Baranchek, one of my staff members. I have such an amazing team that supports me. I'm just so proud of them. I want to give you a short story. Not too long ago, a woman came to our clinic. She was a young immigrant mother. She was referred to us by the state's attorney office. She was in an abusive relationship. Her children had witnessed the abuse. She came to us. We gained her trust because we spoke a language she was comfortable with. We coordinated resources. We got her an order of protection. We found that she had an immigration remedy, and I am proud to say she is out of that relationship and she is on a pathway to U.S. citizenship. That is the kind of difference that we make every day at the clinic, and I am so passionate about the work that we do. We have grown tremendously since we started in 2015. Back then, we were a part-time executive director, a staff, that was our staff. We had a budget of $60,000 and a caseload of 70. Fast forward to today, budget of $600,000, staff of 9, and as of yesterday, we were at 705 cases. A little scary, a little amazing. We are here to fill a gap. There are not a lot of legal services in the suburbs, especially in the area of immigration, despite the fact that there are more immigrants in the suburbs than there are in the city, and yet vastly more legal resources. So we are here to fill that gap. We were, until March, the Highland Park Highwood Legal Aid Clinic, but in truth, we were taking cases from vastly outside of that area, and so we changed our name to the North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic. And that is our story. Again, thank you so much, and if you have any questions, please feel free to come see me. Thank you.
Congratulations again to our 2 award winners this afternoon. I'd also like to pause for a second and recognize that this is the 3rd year that we've recognized community organizations who've been engaged in work, resistance work, or community activist work. I want to acknowledge some of those winners who are here with us again today. From our first annual luncheon, Moms Demand Action, Northfield Working Families, and United Advocacy, and from our 2nd annual luncheon, Indivisible Glenview and North Shore Democrats for Progress. When you came in here this afternoon, most of you had to run a petition gauntlet. Raise your hand if you ran the petition gauntlet. If your hand isn't raised, why? Have you signed the petitions already? Raise your hand if you signed the petitions already. Ah, well done. I won't make you raise your hand to show that you didn't to the first 2 questions, but I will make you promise me that before you leave here today, you will go back out to the petition table, where Frank, I believe, Frank, there you go. Frank will make sure to shepherd you through the petition gauntlet. It truly is a serious labor for these candidates to get through the petition work. I agree wholeheartedly with Congresswoman Schakowsky that it's an important critical process that shows that there is a real body of voter support for each of these candidates. It's not just about paying a fee, it's about getting out there in the field to show that there are people who support you being on the ballot. So thank you to everybody who has done the field work of petitioning. Thank you to everybody here who will have signed it before they leave today. Don't let me catch you sneaking out. Please sign the petitions. I also want to take a minute to talk about the fundraising component of today's luncheon. The work that we do, the field work here, costs money. Printing and delivering sample ballots to over 30,000 township residents last cycle, just for the general election, was a costly endeavor. But it was effective. We know we went up and down the ballot, and we know people completed their ballots and they voted well and smartly. To everyone who sponsored today's event and purchased tickets, Thank you for contributing towards that effort. At every table, you will also find that tucked in your program, there's a white donation envelope. If you have already donated, but you are in a position to contribute more today, thank you, thank you, thank you. Every penny goes towards this field work. If you've come here today to the luncheon as someone's guest, and you are in a petition to make a contribution of any amount, thank you, thank you, thank you. Every penny that you donate will go to this field work and make a difference in electing Democrats in the primary and in the general election. And finally, for those of you here who are Northfield Township residents, if you live in Northbrook, Glenview, or Northfield, you are likely a Northfield Township resident. Today's a great opportunity to wrap up the detail of your 2019 membership dues. If you're uncertain about your membership status, take a peek at your name tag. If it says 2019 on there, it means you are a 2019 member. If you don't yet have the 2019 designation, grab that envelope and get your membership dues taken care of. If you live outside of that township and do not have the designation, don't worry, we only did that for Northfield Township residents. If one guest at each table would be so kind as to grab the large blue envelope and collect the smaller envelopes, I would greatly appreciate it. After today's lunch, we will take care of processing all of those envelopes. Thank you so much for your contributions. We cannot do this work without you. The fundraising pitch being completed, we will move back onto the policy side of this afternoon's presentation, and I will invite State Representative Bob Morgan to join me here at the podium.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. First-term state representative from the 58th District with parts of Northfield Township, and I wanted to start by thanking all of you in this room, because when we were down in Springfield for the first 5 months of this year working on major progressive legislation, the powerful forces that got these things done for the first years of mismanagement, failure to close the deal, we got it done because of amazing state representatives from the north suburbs, like Jen Garden-Gershowitz, and Jonathan Carroll, and Robin Gable, and Laura Fine, and Julie Morrison, and on and on and on. The north suburbs carried a power. They walked softly and carried a big stick, I think is the term. But more importantly, we fought for the things that matter to this community. And it would not have gotten done if it weren't for the people in this room. So thank you for setting us down there, thank you for setting us back. I am humbled by the honor of introducing my friend and Congressman, 10th Congressional District, Congressman Brad Schneider. Everyone in this room knows Brad. Everyone knows the fight that Brad had to get through in 2012 to get to Congress, to DC, to fight for our community. And again, in 14, when he took a sabbatical, and 16 and 18, when he went back to DC to continue to fight for the things that matter most. And I'm here to introduce Brad on a topic that he would rather not be talking about. He would much, much, much rather be talking to you about small businesses, about fighting against climate change and protecting the environment, about the ways that the House passed meaningful gun safety legislation that is now stalled in the Senate. He wants to talk to you about his roles in small business and the Ways and Means Committee. But instead, he's here to talk about not what he wants to do, but what he must do. Because that is the one constant about our Congressman Brad Schneider. He may want to be doing other things, but he will always, always fight for the things that he must do to support our community. And that is why in August, he came out and supported impeachment. And to talk about impeachment again is something that I'm sure is probably at the bottom of the list of 1,000 things that a Congressman Brad Schneider would rather talk about. But I, for one, would not rather have anyone else representing me in DC than our friend Brad Schneider. Thank you.
We're learning. We get it. We pick it up. Anyway, before I go on, can we take a brief moment? And I want to thank all the people who prepared our food, who serve our food, and who made sure we didn't have food. And I know we've recognized the elected officers, we've recognized, but as was mentioned earlier, none of us get here alone. I like to say I got where I've gotten because I've rode the shoulders of many other people working very hard. All the volunteers make a difference, who knock the doors, who make the phone calls, who talk to folks on the street corners to ensure that we elect Democrats up and down the ballot. To all of you, let me just say thank you for all you do to get us there. Now, before I get to impeachment, I want to talk a little bit, I'm going to emphasize what Jan said. this is the most important election in our lifetime. At the risk of perhaps being a little bit dramatic, nothing less than the future of civilization on our planet is at stake in this election. But it's true, because how we respond to climate change is at stake in this election. How we respond to the threat of nuclear proliferation is at stake in this election. And both of those issues are existential threats to civilization on this planet. That's why it's so important. But I also believe that the future of liberal democracy, small l, little d, is at stake in this election. Look at the people this president aligns himself with: Vladimir Putin, Erdogan. You can run down the list of folks he hangs out with, and every one of them is threatening liberal democracy as we have come to know it. This election is about assuring that the alliances that we've relied on our entire lives are restored, are strengthened, and that the security that we've come to take for granted now understand that it's at risk is our children's future. What's at stake in this election is nothing less than the future of who we are as a country. What kind of country do we want to be? One that brings people together from around the entire planet? To quote, of all people at a Democratic luncheon, to quote Ronald Reagan, who said, "It doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, what your upbringing was, you can come to this country, you can raise your hand in an oath," as Jen and I had the privilege to watch on Thursday as 126 people from 40 different nations joined together in unison to become citizens of the United States, and you enjoy every single right, every single hope, every single aspiration that all of us have as Americans. That's what we're fighting for in this election. So I won't ask everyone to raise their hand again, but let's just make sure that the oath we're taking today is the oath to elect a Democrat to the White House, because that's what's at stake. Now, the way we do that is through the election. It's knocking on those doors, it's making those phone calls, it's getting the signatures on the petitions. Please don't leave without signing our petitions. But the way we take back the White House is by winning the election. Impeachment's about something altogether different. Now, I'm an engineer by training, but also by personality. I like process. It's who I am. And that's why I believed in the process set out by our Constitution and the idea of the separation of powers. That's why I argued so vociferously to allow Robert Mueller and his team to finish their investigation. I expected that investigation would lead to a conclusion, but for whatever his reasons were, and I follow his logic, I just don't agree with it. The Mueller report didn't come to a conclusion in Volume 2. It left loose ends on 10 possible paths of obstruction. So it was to Congress to follow the Constitution, to follow the process, to hold its hearings, to execute its constitutionally empowered authority and prerogative and responsibility for oversight. But the administration stonewalled, the administration blocked any type of testimony before Congress, and that's why, Bob, in August, I came out and said we need to raise the bar by going to formal impeachment inquiry. But that all changed, and when I tell you that it changed just 3 weeks ago, it's hard to believe it's only been 3 weeks since President Trump and his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, took to the airwaves and said, "Hey, we pressured Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden." We've come to learn a lot more about it in the 3 weeks since, but at that time for me, it was clear. This president has put the national security interest, the foreign policy priorities of our nation, subordinated to his own personal objectives and political ambitions. That, to me, is an impeachable offense. That's why 3 weeks ago I said we need to move even further and begin drafting the articles of impeachment. Now, I don't know what they'll say. That's the investigation we see taking place right now. And until we see what they are, I don't know if it's something that we will move over to the Senate, so that Senator Durbin and 100 other senators will sit as jurors when the president gets his deserved day in court. But I am a guy of process, and I believe we need to go to this process. The issue with Ukraine, distinct from the issue of the Mueller report, to me is in a different lane and at a much higher level. It is not just the abuse of power. It is the misuse and misappropriation of the government for personal gain, putting all of us at risk. And we see that in what's happening around the world. That's why I'm confident in my colleagues. I am grateful for the deliberate and deliberative process you see taking place. I am hopeful that we will see more people like Ambassador Yanonovich, who defied the president and said, I must speak out. We cannot allow this president to deem himself above the law and not follow the process to hold him accountable to the law. That is separate from the election. We will remove him from office in the election. I don't know what will happen with the impeachment. This is one of the most somber and solemn decisions as a representative any of us have to make, but we owe it to our oath to the Constitution, to our pledge, to who we are as a country, to hold this president to account. So that being the uplifting part of the afternoon, let me now shift gears. I have had the privilege of representing the 10th District now in my third term, but going back to 2013. In my first election, it was somewhat of a long shot. No one had won the 10th District as a Democrat since 1978 in Abner Mikva. The odds were against us. I know I got where I got to because of the help of people in this room and thousands of others like you. But one of the first conversations I had was a call to our Senator, Dick Durbin. And he said, Brad, do you have a fire in your belly? If you don't have that fire, you shouldn't be doing this. I thought about it, I said, yes, I do. I have a fire because I want to make a difference. But part of that fire comes from inspiration of others. And one of the people who has always inspired me is our Senator. Because he's expressed that fire by fighting for our whole state and for our country. In representing our state, he has risen to the #2 spot in the Senate. He is someone who is highly regarded by all of his colleagues, and when it's time to bring the delegation from Illinois together on an issue, we meet in his office and we follow his lead. He is someone who I am proud to call our senior senator. I am proud to live in a state that he represents. I am proud to be part of a body of the United States Congress that he leads. With no further ado, it is my honor to introduce our senior senator, the senator from Illinois, Richard Durbin.
Let me say in all humility, it's all true. Thanks, Brad. Do a great job. Thanks for tackling a tough subject on impeachment. But none of us can compare with that introduction of your colleague, Jan Schakowsky. When Robin Gale stood up here and said, because of Jan Schakowsky, we have dates. Now, I've never used a dating service, but I want to thank you, Jan. Our two kids have very successfully, in your leadership, brought this to America. Thank you so much. It's what it is. Tracy Catsmule, thank you. I will, Brad. You're now in a great position of leadership. Formerly great, still great in my books, Mike Kreloff. Thank you so much for all you've done. Tony Kretwinkel, when you came knocking on my door, and you do frequently, you're welcome to come anytime. And many years ago said, let's try to persuade a president named Barack Obama to create a waiver so that we can bring more people into health insurance in Cook County. We did it with Jan and Brad and everyone else. How many did it get up to? 120, 130,000? 130,000 people in Cook County for the first time. Pardon me?
118 now.
118?
318.
318. It might have been 400, 318,000 who now have health insurance, and I've met many of them. Some for the first time in their lives, the age of 60 and 62 years of age, have health insurance. Can you imagine living a whole life without health insurance? That is exactly what they've been through, and because of Tony's leadership and the great President Barack Obama, it became a reality. Now, I don't know if you can hear me in the back of the room, but I'm reminded of a trip I took. Kenya? Is that why you're leaving? No. I took a trip down to Nashville, Tennessee, to the Grand Ole Opry. You ever heard of that? Yeah. And there was a fellow there who was a country and western singer. He's kind of up in years and he had a big old black cowboy hat and a guitar. He was leaning into the microphone. He said, "You may have noticed that I'm wearing a hearing aid." I'm not. He said, "You may have noticed I'm wearing a hearing aid." He said, "I got it on my wedding anniversary. You may wonder why. Let me tell you." He said, "My wife said to me, you know, I'm proud of you." And I said to her, "You know, I'm getting tired of you too." He said, I made a decision to buy a hearing aid, so I hope you can hear me whether it's assisted or otherwise. I want to thank all the people who are here and the many candidates in the room. Wish you all very well. And I just want to tell you that 2020 is a big year for a lot of big reasons. As Brad has told you, and you knew already, we are facing a moment in American history none of us could have imagined a few years ago. Today is the 1,000th day of the Trump presidency. The 1,000th day. And the reason I bring that up to you is at the end of this program, I ask you to remember that number, 1,000, because I have a request of you. But before I reach that point, I want to tell you why you need to be motivated and activated. You see it every day, don't you? In this president's conduct 5 times a day with his outrageous tweets, the things that he's done and said, continues to do. And you know what it's been? It's been that he's really confronted us across America and challenged us. He's challenging us as to whether or not we really stand for the values we profess to stand for. Are we willing to stand together for them? And in a way, it's a challenge we better take seriously. Because what this president has done and said is to go after the very basics. He has appealed to fear and hate across America. I hate to use those words. It's painful to use them, but there's no other way to say it. Appealing to fear and hate when it comes to the issue of race. Who in their right mind could go and look at that scene in Charlottesville and what happened when these new Nazis and white nationalists decided to march in the street, their chant straight out of the days of Hitler's Germany. And then the president to say afterwards, good people on both sides. Good people on both sides. What was he thinking? He wasn't thinking clearly. Because there weren't good people on both sides. There were good people on one side. On the other side were those who marched for hate and bigotry. And sadly, one of the other demonstrators lost her life because of it. That is the reality of his view, and I see it regularly. You know, on the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is Mitch McConnell's favorite playground, where he sends us new federal nominees almost on a daily basis, I get to see these people with extraordinary, sometimes bizarre backgrounds who are being proposed for lifetime appointments to the federal bench. That's the #1 priority in the United States Senate. They passed 200 bills, Brad, 200 in the House of Representatives, the Democrats have, on every important topic that the people of Northfield, Illinois, and America care about, and we haven't taken up one of them, not one of them. Instead, we take up these federal judicial nominees. And to say that they are lacking in skill and competence is an understatement. Many of them never saw Perry Mason. Many of them never stuck around for the second half of Law and Order. They've never seen what a courtroom looks like. And now they want lifetime appointments to be trial court judges. I'm not making this up. Some of it is just downright embarrassing that they're being suggested for these lifetime appointments. But it's for one thing, to make sure when they get on the bench, they're going to overrule our efforts as Congress or the efforts of others to deal with the issues that are important. Issues like equality and opportunity. Take another look at the issues when it comes to the side of women and their future in America. We know what this president has done when it comes to women's health care. We know when it comes to the most basic decision that women need to make about their future. He is closing door after door after door, and Republican governors are backing him up. Aren't we lucky to have J.B. Pritzker in the state of Illinois? Aren't we lucky to have him in the decision by the Illinois General Assembly to enshrine in law the basic rights of women when it comes to health care. Thank goodness for that leadership and a turnaround in our state. Thank you all for supporting that important legislation. But that isn't the end of it by far. The battle which this president is waging on the issue of immigration is one that I take personally. Personally. If you visit my office in Washington, you're welcome. Behind me on the credenza, in a small 8x10 frame, is my mother's naturalization certificate. She came to the United States, brought here at the age of 2 from Lithuania, grew up in this country with a mother who never spoke English, made a life and a family, and got a son who ended up with a full-time government job. It's an indication of opportunity in this country for me, for my family, and for probably many others who are seated in this room who could tell a similar story. That's who we are in America. I just left the meeting in Schaumburg Township. There were about 200 people, demonstrators, outside that meeting protesting me. Protesting me. They were Indians, people from India, who have come to the United States on H-1B visas, who want to apply for green cards. There's a bill that's gone through the House, now before the Senate, which I think needs to be dramatically changed. It would start to solve their problem and offer them green cards by cutting off green cards for other people. We've got to find a better way. What I've suggested, what I voted for, is to increase the number of green cards so those who have talents and want to be part of America's future have that opportunity, whether they're from India or whether they're from Ireland. It makes no difference. They should all have that chance if they're a viable part of our future and our economy. And we need to work to do that. And what the president has done is to declare immigrants as murderers and rapists and terrorists. You've seen what's happened at the border. Maybe the most disgraceful chapter in the last 1,000 days. Boy, it's hard to think of that competition, isn't it? But the most disgraceful chapter in my mind was the decision of this administration to remove 2,880 infants, toddlers, and children from their mothers at the border. They did that. And then what did they do with them? They dispersed them across the United States without records. It wasn't until a judge in Southern California, a federal judge, demanded that they have an accounting of those 2,880 kids that they finally did. And all but 100 were finally reunited after months of effort. Let me tell you what it looked like. I went into an immigration court in the Loop in Chicago. You'd never pick it out. It's in a big, tall building. It's one floor. And when I got off the elevator, it was stacked 5 deep in the hallway, waiting for the docket call. The immigration judge was there, and she said, she seemed like a very nice person. She'd been at this for 20 years. She said, would you stay for the docket call, at least the beginning? I said I would. And I sat down, and she said, will everyone please take seats? Well, unfortunately, the first 2 clients had some difficulty. The first one, Marta, could not get in the chair because she was only 2 years old. She had to be lifted to get in that chair, and they handed her a stuffed owl that she hung on to for the entire hearing. But lucky for him, little Hamilton was 4 years old, and he was able to scramble up on the chair because they had a little car for him to play with on the table there. But here we are at the hearing on the fate of these children, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. This is America, where these children would be removed from their parents, and in this circumstance go through a hearing where they might wait, have, in this case, a continuance of 6 months before they were allowed to finally be reunited. I kept track of the 2-year-old. She was finally reunited 4 months later. She'd been separated from her mother for almost 8 months. They said when they first came together, she wouldn't even let her mother hold her. She felt like she'd been abandoned. That was the reality of what life was. And that was the policy of this administration. Now, there have been other terrible things, don't get me wrong, but this was a situation which clearly demonstrates what this administration feels like when it comes to the issues of immigration. We have work to do, my friends, a lot of work to do. And it isn't just on the matters I mentioned. We need to bring the issues home to people in a way that they care about them. Healthcare is number one. It won the big election for us in 2018 more than any other issue. Healthcare drove it because the Republicans virtually had no answer when it came to the Affordable Care Act. Nothing. And so we're in a situation where we need to address these issues in a meaningful way. And if you went across America and you asked the American people, what's the biggest issue in your life that you think Congress could do something about? Prescription drug prices, number one. Prescription drug prices. 90% of Democrats and 90% of Republicans all say the same thing. Prescription drug prices. Why would they say this? You have any friends or members of your family who are suffering from diabetes? Ask them about the cost of insulin. Let me give you one example. In 1999, Eli Lilly made a product called Humalog, a very popular form of insulin. It was for sale for $39 a vial in 1999. Now, $329 a vial for the same vial. I've met parents in this state who are hoarding insulin for fear that their kids won't be able to afford it. I'm not making that up. It's serious. Incidentally, how much is that same vial of Eli Lilly's drug selling for in Canada? Still $39. What's the difference? The difference is the Canadian government gives a damn. And the Canadian government says you're not going to overcharge Canadian citizens. Why doesn't our government? Why haven't we done this? The American people ask that, and rightfully so. We have to decide that the health of Americans is more important than the profits of pharma. I want them to be profitable. They're for-profit corporations. I want them to invest in new drugs. But when it comes to new drugs that are unaffordable and unaccessible, what have we gained? And in this case, we have to find a fair way to price those drugs. What's the second thing people mention that I'm concerned about that Congress ought to do something about? I don't know if you thought about it, but really it's something very important. People say, you know, I notice people are living a lot longer. I don't think I've saved enough money. I don't know if Social Security is going to carry me all the way to the finish line. What's going to happen to me, Senator? It's a good point. What we're finding is that more and more people are concerned about their retirement, the one that they signed up for, and whether it is going to be enough. Now, we have a plan through our Treasurer, Mike Frericks, in the state called Secure Choice, which I think some of the legislators here are aware of, creating opportunities for opt-in retirement plans for those who work for employers who don't already offer a retirement plan. But it's time for us to talk about those issues that are meaningful. Caregivers, for goodness sakes, don't we see it? An aging population. We want to make sure that people have decent, safe, respectable places to stay where we can send our mothers and grandmothers and others that we care for and feel confident that they're going to be treated well. Well, we've got to think about caregiving, but don't believe it's just at that end of life. When my son and his wife recently, I guess a little over a year ago, discovered they were going to have a baby and got so happy about it, the first call was to the daycare center, get on a waiting list so that their kids would be able to get into the daycare center near their home. It's caregiving from the very start of life all the way through life, and it ought to be viewed as something we care about as elected officials. The last point I want to make to you is one that goes in a little different direction, but we ought to think about this. Jeff Guerin's my pollster. I give him a lot of dough because I think he's pretty good. And he did an exit poll after the last election. And he asked those who voted supporting Hillary Clinton and those who voted supporting Donald Trump their views on issues. And a lot of these things were not surprising, just what you might expect the two different camps would come up with. But the last question was the one that he said bothered him the most. Let me tell you what it was. Listen to it. Do you think expanding opportunity for women, for minorities, for those who are new to this country and people of different sexual orientation is good or bad for America? The line split. So you see, more than economics, we're dealing with some culture here. We know who we are. We know what Democrats stand for. We know what our values are, what they are worth fighting for. As long as I can remember, this has been a party willing to fight for equality and opportunity. We just lost a tremendous warrior in Marka Bristow. Marka Bristow, some of you I'm sure knew Marka, Jan and I think Brad as well, knew her as this wonderful champion for disabled people who worked so hard for the Americans with Disabilities Act. Just passed away recently. What a heartbreak. She was always, always there. One of her last official acts was getting arrested again in Washington and again. And we were so damn proud of her that she did. But think of it in our lifetime, how we have expanded this opportunity. We continue to work on the issue of race. We're not there by a long shot, but we made enough progress to elect an African-American president. We know that women are becoming a greater part of our political scene, and that's a positive thing. I want to give a shout out to Loretta's organization, I Will, because I know Deborah Shore is here, who was the first elected member of the I Will class. Tracy was in I Will. Who else was in I Will? Oh, look at this. A lot of I Will grads who are here. Pardon me?
Kim Dubois. There's a lot.
Okay, now we're going to have there have been 180 grads of Loretta's program over the last 15 years. And these are women who are now the first African-American lieutenant governor of our state, Juliana Stratton, Congresswoman Sherry Bustos, soon-to-be Congresswoman Betsy Dirksen-Lombergen down in Springfield. Well, anyway, I made my point about women. There are a lot more that will make a big difference in our future. And we also know when it comes to sexual orientation, we have learned something as people and as a party, that the more people come to know those of different orientation, the more accepting they become. Our kids can't get it. Why are you still debating this? Why is this still an issue? They're people. Come on, get with it. And we have to be sensitive and conscious of the fact that our commitment to this cultural issue, this equality issue, may be divisive, but it is who we are. I think it unites us more than it divides us. And as we stand up for these principles, it makes a big difference. And let me close with 1,000 days. 1,000 days. Let me ask you, do you think during the course of those 1,000 days you maybe spend 1 hour a day watching Morning Joe, waiting for Rachel's voice so you can go to sleep, listening to NPR? So maybe you've spent 1,000 hours thinking about what a mess there is in Washington. And how many hours did you spend talking to your family and friends saying, what the hell are we going to do about this? We got to get rid of this guy. This has got to come to an end. I'm one who doesn't believe it'll be so simple as an impeachment and it's over. I don't think it's going to be that simple because I happen to serve in a Senate where I can count. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like a lot are moving in that direction. I could be wrong. We'll see. But we do know there's an election coming, and that's when we get the last word. So I'm asking for those 1,000 days and an hour a day that you give 1% of that back. Let's give 6 of those 10 hours back to family needs, the Illinois Democrats who are running at every single level. Many of them are here today. Mike Cavanargi is a new candidate who's going to be running countywide in Cook County, along with many others who are gathered here today. But then we need to devote some of our time to those battleground states, those electoral college states, which make the difference. We know what the electoral college is about. As archaic as it is, it's the Constitution, it's the law. We've had 2 presidents now who didn't win the popular vote and ended up guiding our country, appointing lifetime appointments to the Supreme Court. So this election comes down to the very fundamentals and basics as to what we're going to be in the years to come. And I'm asking you to devote a few hours. Maybe it's just a check, maybe it's an Act Blue contribution, maybe it's some time that you could spend in Wisconsin, one of our battleground states, in Iowa, or places nearby. And if you're in deep southern Illinois, I know it's a long hike from here, but I do think there's a woman named Amy McGrath who is starting to get a lot of attention across this country. If you haven't heard her name, she's running the expensive town. So it's up to us. Are you prepared to spend another 1,000 hours watching MSNBC and complaining? I'm not. I'm ready to get out and do something about it. That's why you're here today. That's why the Northfield Township Democrats make a difference. Thank you.
Nate and Sarah Mall, who said they'll come again if we have the dessert again. And the other young Democrat kids that are here today, where's Miriam and Lucas and Jonah, and I even count you still too, Jeremy. There's at least a half dozen Democrat kids in the room today. We don't just get apple pie today for them. We do everything we're doing here today for them. All of this is motivated towards making them a better future. All of the work that the candidates and electeds do, all of the work that we do as an organization. At the end of the day, it's really about the 6 of you and all the young people you stand for, so thank you for being here today.
Everyone, this was a great event. I also do intend to come back next year for the dessert. But also the great speakers and all the great people who work in this. You know, we've never been stronger, we've never been larger. but we know we have a lot of work ahead of us. I was cleaning up my office yesterday. Those who know me are doubting that. But actually I was, and I saw a plate that I had that said Paul Simon, Southern Illinois Democrat, 1974. And it made me think about, you know, all the commitment that all of our candidates make, and all of our volunteers. And it reminds, I would like Elaine to come on up, and Dan. And I thought I was going to say something about, you know, like the past and the present and the future. But that's not really accurate, because Dan Fry, our former president, he's only former, but he's still down there working. Elaine, who is no longer an elected official, but is working hard every day for social justice issues in Springfield. Tracy and I, all of what you do. And it reminded me of my first campaign with Gene McCarthy for president. This one here. This one you're too old, and they should take the mic from you. But Gene McCarthy had a line stolen from Plutarch. You know, because really a lot of what we have in our government is from ancient Greece. And what Plutarch said is, there are those who think politics is like an ocean voyage with a beginning and an end. But it's not. It's a way of life. And I think for all of our elected officials, that certainly can be true, and I'm looking out at some of them who give so much. But for all of us in all of our own ways, it is so important. And there's that cliche about the most important election is the next one. It couldn't be truer, and you know, this country counts on you.
We just have a couple of more things that we want to touch on before we wrap up here today. Thank you everybody for running on time. I'm so impressed. Presidential campaigns. The most common question I get asked these days is, how do I get involved? And also specifically, how do I get involved in the presidential campaigns? I want to highlight the fact that at least 4 of the campaigns are active here locally in Northfield Township. And I want to give a shout out to some of the people who are here today who are working with those campaigns. You can connect with them through us as an organization, as well as through our local representatives. For the Elizabeth Warren campaign, Karen Fliegler, former Senator Daniel Biss, Catherine Caparuso. Am I missing anyone from your team? Excellent. From the Harris campaign, Mike Kreloff, who was just up here, Mayor Nancy Rotering, State Rep Bob Morgan. Anybody else I want to hit for Team Harris? Excellent. Mayor Pete, Deborah Shore, and Kate Spears are involved in that campaign. And from the Biden campaign, Debbie Carton. Again, please feel free to reach out to us to get connected with them. Those campaign petitions are out on the table today for at least 3 of those campaigns that are ready here in Illinois. We expect more will be coming in soon. You can, to reiterate, sign more than 1 petition as long as you're only signing petitions for Democrats in these races. The other thing I want to highlight before we wrap up here today is the what comes next, right? Volunteering, obviously, that's the next big thing we're going to need. We need people to help us wrap up the petition season and get ready to ramp up for all the work that goes into doing the March 2020 primary. There could be some door knocking, some phone calling, some working elections in wintry weather. We'll go out and get the heat packs for our hands. We need you. We'll do what we have to keep you warm. On a more specific level, for the women in the room, we've got Democratic Women's Night Out. That will be Monday, October 21st at Oliveries in Northbrook, 7:30 in the evening. It's a woman-owned business. It's a women-driven event. We're going to talk about women candidates and women campaigns. Also save the date, Sunday, November 3rd, 3 p.m. at the Northbrook Public Library. We have a joint event with North Shore Democrats for Progress, where we're going to focus on finishing up the petitioning, as well as hear from our judicial candidates. We've got a handful coming in to talk to us and help get us educated about those races and how that all works. We don't have a specific date yet, but obviously those who are part of the group know we've got our holiday party trivia challenge. That will be in December. People who are here from last year's champion team, Michelle, Jonathan, were you on that team? Who else was that team? No? Who else was your team, Michelle? Michelle and Mark? Michelle and Mark really won today because they got the last question that was, who are all the people on this page, and they were all guest stars from the Friends TV show. It's one of my favorite events of the year because we work hard and we need to do a little bit of play hard too. So keep an eye for the date for that. That kind of wraps it up in terms of where we are here and where we're going next. I want to take a minute again just to thank everybody who's been here today. This is a record-breaking turnout for this event. I think it's because it's going to be a record-breaking election. I think everybody in the room knows that the future of our country depends on what we do in this next cycle. And so I need everybody here to dig deep. You've donated digging deep today. You're going to find time to dig deep. You're going to go out and work with candidates and campaigns and with the organization. We're going to find you ways you can do that. You are going to make the difference. And I know that you can because Democrats of Northfield Township has the best Democrats in suburban Cook County. You show up again and again. You give up your time. You give yourselves. And you do it all with an amazing smile on your face, which is something that I think is so special and unique to those of us who are Chicagoans and Chicago suburbanites for our whole life. The spirit and energy that we bring to our work as Democrats is really specific to who we are and where we're from. We couldn't do this without you. Thank you all again so much for being here this afternoon. I will ask the IWOL women to come up at the end. We're going to grab a quick IWOL photo. You cannot leave without running the petition gauntlet. Frank, the enforcer, where are you? Frank is there already. Nobody leaves this room without having signed all the petitions. Thank you. You're wonderful. Have a good afternoon.